We can cut it.
There are certain things that kids in the 1970s just couldn't do without. Things that defined a generation and provided a fulfilling experience. Sadly, none of which would be appreciated or understood today. Here are 20 things from the 1970s that kids today will never understand. But before we begin, hit that subscribe button. The 70s introduced the ingenious sleep aid, a bed that rocked you to sleep, known as the waterbed. These mattress designs gained popularity in the 70s for the innovation of a water-filled bed weighing up to 1,600 pounds at full capacity. They were widely advertised on television as the peak of comfort and luxury, and they began to decline in sales when people started to complain about their extremely heavy weight, making them difficult to move around. Another concern was leaks that caused miniature floods in many homes. They were so bad that some landlords wouldn't allow tenants to bring them in, as they were potential floods waiting to happen. The final nail in the coffin was the many complaints of discomfort while sleeping on the bed, and turns were more wobbly than expected, and one slight turn could generate water movement to keep you awake for a long time. While they are still made today, they're no longer a common thing.
Slinky toys are fun toys. What walks downstairs alone or in pairs and makes a slinkety sound.
The Slinky toy was incredibly popular in the 1970s, though its origin dates way back. It's impressive how such a simple toy could make such an impact in one era. The Slinky was a spring-like toy invented as far back as 1943 by Richard James, a naval engineer. You could say that the Slinky was an accidental invention which simply went flying off the shelves. It all begins when a tension spring fell off a shelf and continued to walk across the room using the forces of physics, and voila, the Slinky would be born. The toy made it across all parts of America and even got its TV adverts and was on billboards everywhere. Children loved the colorful plastic Slinky and its wide dangling movement, which seemed to go on forever. Of course, kids today would not understand the appeal of the dangling toy because of the shift in digital entertainment and play patterns. However, the Slinky was a symbol of simplicity, evoking nostalgic memories of the carefree days when fun and creativity were as simple as bouncing a spring. Pollution in the 1970s was on a different level. At that time, the laws guiding pollution were not as strict as today, and human activity like industrialization, transport, and others led to visible air pollution. One such case was the infamous Los Angeles smog. In the 1970s and 80s, Los Angeles experienced at least 200 days of smog per year, causing transportation issues and uncertainty in the weather, as well as others. On the foggiest of summer days, the ozone levels exceeded 300 parts per billion, and things did not get any better as the population increased year by year, and the number of vehicles also doubled. The government took a stand, enforcing emission standards that had major impacts on the smog-filled region, and the Clean Air Act of 1970 and 1977, amongst other laws and emission standards, which were put in place 4 decades ago, finally made a difference, bringing down the pollution by 70% or more since the smog first emerged in 1970.
Introducing the latest twin Stingray, the Stingray Electric.
The 60s and 70s saw an influx of Stingray bikes, which drew inspiration from hot rods and motorcycles. Designed by Schwinn, the Stingray came with distinctive features that trended amongst children, like the long banana seat, high-rise handlebars, and wide balloon tires. The frame of the Stingray was much more compact than that of a regular bike, making it easy to maneuver and master when performing a stunt. It appealed to young riders and became a must-have, especially for young schoolboys. The Stingray made a cultural impact as it was featured prominently on TV shows, movies, and adverts, and every child wanted one because they quickly became something that only the cool kids owned. Soon enough, sales of the Stingray declined as BMX bikes took over the market. BMXs were considerably lighter, durable, and well-suited for off-road, and today, Stingrays are more collectible and displayed as iconic symbols of a forgotten era.
Racing, racing, riding, riding,
Big wheels are a-rolling with big fat wheels in back.
Kids in the 1970s certainly remember the big wheel. The tricycle with a distinctively low-riding design and massive front wheels, with two smaller and thicker rear wheels that were sleek, balanced, and had a drag-like appearance. The durable plastic bike greatly appealed to children, as they were easy to control and even spun around, doing 180 degrees if you suddenly hit the brake. The big wheel was very lightweight with simple but powerful pedals, which allowed kids to build impressive speed. It was balanced and easy for all ages, and they would race around the neighborhood with their low center of gravity, and the ability to skid or spin out while burning rubber was part of the appeal. Big wheels were relatively inexpensive with little risk of injury. The toy has remained a beloved part of the 1970s American childhood.
This is Polaroid's new Time Zero One Step.
Pretty. Why is it black?
So you'll know it's the Time Zero One Step.
The Polaroid camera was invented during the Second World War, and these revolutionary inventions were made to print pictures immediately after the shot was taken. That way, there's no time wasted between taking the photo and viewing the image. The first Polaroid was launched in 1948 with sepia tone and later upgraded to black and white in the 50s. It wasn't until 1972 that the non-peel-apart color prints were launched. The Polaroid camera was widely popular and gave instant picture printouts, which was a huge deal in an age where many other cameras required you to wait for weeks for development in a lab before you could even get copies. The popularity of instant cameras began to decline in 1979 when the 35mm camera and video cameras came into the spotlight.
And today we're looking at Tippet.
Tippet, the wackiest balancing game ever.
Remember the Tippet game that kids played in the 70s? It was a game of balance and dexterity designed by Marvin Glass and Associates. The setup is as engaging and fun as playing the game itself, consisting of interconnected poles sitting on a tripod and attached to a base. The colorful discs distributed among the three poles attached to the tripod. An element called the acrobat is precariously balanced on top of the long pole. And after the game's set up, it stands about 2 feet tall, and the objective is to extract as many discs from the pole as possible. Each one is worth a certain number, and to determine which one to extract, the player has to spin a spinner and use the lifting to remove the specific colored disc from any of the 3 pegs. Discs were worth values of 5, 10, and 25 points, and the player that acquires 100 points wins the game. This classic game is the perfect test of balance, wits, and surgical precision, and today there are variations of the original being sold, but with way less popularity than the original. With digital games and other computer-based distractions, kids today would never know the joys of playing Tippet with friends and family.
You need new Kellogg's Apple Jacks. Apple good for breakfast or snacks.
Nothing was as important as the sugar-frosted memories of morning cereal in the 70s. They just don't make them like they used to. Morning cereal wasn't only breakfast, it was a ritual, a vitamin-packed tradition that kids always look forward to. With the variety of authentic flavors, no kid could resist a giant bowl of sweetened cereal while watching Saturday cartoons. It always topped the breakfast charts, not only for ease of preparation, but because there were too many flavors that you could never get bored.
When you change into Fun Pals and Underoos underwear, you can pretend to change into a hero.
Superhero underwear was a huge trend for children in the 1970s. They were called Underoos and were developed in 1977 by an entrepreneur named Larry Weiss. Just imagine wearing your favorite superhero's underwear. As weird as it sounds, it was the absolute best birthday gift. Since the internet didn't exist, children had to entertain themselves by playing make-believe, or as they say, using their imagination to imagine what a group of kids dressed in their superhero underwear could achieve. The licensed characters were those from Marvel Comics, DC, Archie, and Hanna-Barbera. So, as you can imagine, there was an endless pool of favorites to pick from.
But first, a can of Coors with the pull tab.
Back in the late 60s and early 70s, aluminum cans for beer and other beverages had tabs on them, and these aluminum tabs were referred to as pop tops. These pop tops easily detached from the top when you open the can, much different from the tab on today's aluminum cans. The problem with the pop top was that they littered the streets and became an eyesore, and even caused injuries to those who stepped on them. However, some people found another use for the wasted aluminum pieces, creating artful pieces like aluminum armor and a wide array of designs that use nothing but the pop tops themselves.
Laughing? Yeah, these are original old school lunchboxes.
Remember those durable metal lunchboxes of the 1970s? Kids were ecstatic when they got one as a birthday gift, not only because they were trendy and almost every kid in school had one, but because they became a billboard for advertising. Every child wanted to own a lunchbox with their favorite superhero plastered on all sides, and for every new television show, a metal lunchbox was made to advertise it. Shows like The Hulk, The Bugaloos, Battlestar Galactica, and more had special boxes, and they would brag about those lunchboxes and who had the best heroes. It was aesthetically appealing and provided a sense of patriotism. Productions of the metal lunchboxes had to stop when parents complained about them being used as weapons in schools. Metal lunchboxes slowly faded as plastic ones and better designs were introduced into the market. The 1970s were an interesting time in television entertainment. Kids looked forward to sitting in front of their TV screens to binge on Saturday morning cartoons on the weekends, as this was a special time for the animated series. Even though Saturday morning cartoons began in the 60s, the action-packed superhero series began in the 70s, presenting a wide variety of non-stop family entertainment. At some point, things got political as parents voiced their concerns about the action-packed kids' shows, expressing displeasure in the presentation of violence, stereotypes, commercialism, and all kinds of antisocial behaviors. This would alter the kind of cartoons being shown to kids, as many other shows were placed under severe restrictions. Either way, kids today would never understand the joy and excitement of waiting until the weekend to watch their favorite shows, nor the chills that you got when the theme music hit the screen.
This means the amateur hairstylist is out.
People in the 1970s took grooming to a whole different level with a wide variety of hairstyles that became popular. It popularized various hairstyles that left a lasting legacy on both women and men. From hair care to skin care, it was the decade of self-discovery and celebrations of youth and individuality. Men would walk around with combs in their back pockets, showing that they took their hairstyling seriously, and women would style their hair after a popular movie actress by the name of Farrah Fawcett. Several hair care brands would launch shampoos, concentrates, hairsprays, and more in order to target certain demographics, and while the art of grooming is not lost, it would be difficult to understand the 70s obsession without it.
The One Wish mushroom lamp. This is, I believe, a perfect lamp for an end table.
The 60s and 70s were known as an era of psychedelia because, for some reason, there was an obsession with mushroom decor. Many households had fancied mushroom motifs and fungi-based decorations on the wall, floor, and kitchenware with funky toadstool designs. Textiles, lamps, and upholstery and trinkets weren't left out of the fungal frenzy either. As you could imagine, the mushroom culture permeated the media and movie industry. The appeal for the toadstool was justified as they gave color and natural beauty to everything. This trend may be spurred by the legalization of magic mushrooms in certain regions, or just a love for nature. But either way, the mushroom decor provided an enchanting and whimsical appearance. In the 1970s, living without air conditioning was a common thing, and while it was available at the time, it was not widespread. It was a luxury that only few could afford. Older buildings and less affluent areas had to do without. However, there were other ways that people used over the years to keep themselves cool, as well as improve ventilation in their homes. For some, the architectural and home design, like high ceilings, large windows, front porches, awnings, and more, helped to keep the home cool while regulating the internal temperature. Fans were available, both electric and manual, and if the heat became unbearable, people went for a swim, took a bath, wore damp clothing, and even spent time on lower floors like basements, which were much more cool. Record stores were neighborhood retail stores where you could purchase vinyl records of various genres of music. You could also entertain yourself by playing the music on one of the stands to make a decision on if you wanted to purchase the record or not. Record stores were popular from the late 19th century to the early 20th century, and as time passed, major record stores began to sell more than just vinyl records, adding others like 8-track tapes, cassette tapes, CDs, and in some cases, DVDs. Record stores were the best places to find the latest music releases and also listen to them while standing. The store sold everything related to the music, such as posters, mugs, bags, clothing, and other merchandise related to popular musicians and bands.
And with Photomats' bigger series, 35 prints, I can look back and remember every little detail.
Remember the old days when people would drop off their films at a Photomat for development and return later to pick them up? If you don't know what a Photomat is, these were wide chains of drive-through development kiosks that were popular in the 70s and 80s. The standalone booths were usually located in a parking lot near a shopping mall or a convenience store. Founded in 1965 by Preston Fleet, the booth allowed customers to drop off rolls of film at a drive-thru without getting out of their car. The distinctive pyramid-shaped kiosk was always painted yellow and blue with one single person inside, and customers were given tickets and offered a 24-hour turnaround time, which was fast compared to the competition. Photomats were a popular choice for families until their decline in the 80s, when technological advancements led to the rise in numerous one-hour photo labs all over the country, as well as home development kits and instant cameras.
Hi.
How far are you going?
All the way to the beach.
Hitchhiking in the 1970s is one culturally significant practice that appears to have faded out over the years. If you saw a hitchhiker today flagging you down, you would probably say, "Nope, I've seen that movie." But back in the 1970s, it was a fun and unique way of traveling long distances without spending a whole lot of money. All you had to do was pack a bag to travel light and then flag down any vehicle going your way. Be open to the inconvenience of a travel partner, and hitchhiking was a concept that seems almost alien today, except when people see it in the horror movies. And back then, it was not unusual to pick up a stranger or more and travel together while sharing stories, particularly those of seeking thrilling adventures and aiming to cut across the country on a low budget. The problem was its unpredictability, safety issues for everyone involved, and social anxiety, which often determined whether a hitchhiker would nail the deal or be left stranded on a long walk. Some places even banned the action, shifting away from the practice because of safety concerns, especially in the more modern time. Hitchhiking will always have its place in history, and may often become a last resort for someone who's stranded and broken down on an isolated road.
Say your new girlfriend called. You'd know to answer it. Hello, Daddy.
The caller ID was a revolutionary invention that was introduced in the 1970s. Before that time, people used a rotary phone and a landline that had no display, so the person receiving the call was unaware of who the caller would be until they answered. The ID changed everything. It was the beginning of a new chapter of telecommunications, and the small message box displayed the telephone number or name of the caller. If the caller ID flashed an unfamiliar number, it may be a salesman or a number you haven't saved. The ID was a groundbreaking invention that helped people decide when to pick up the phone and what calls were important. Today, there are large phone screens and advanced apps that make it easy to identify a caller, all available on your mobile phone. However, the caller ID remains a nostalgic development in history, changing communication forever.
Music lives on TDK.
In the early 1970s, compact cassette tapes were used to record music from radio. These cassettes were easy to use, and you could record music on both sides of the tape, naming each side A and B so as not to mix them up. Cassettes were the only ways to either record a mixtape or store a form of audio. You could rewind the tape either with a button on your player or manually by rotating the ribbons in the direction required. The crazy part is even when the ribbon was cut, you could still somehow glue it back together and have your cassette be as good as new, maybe with a little glitch. Cassettes are so convenient that if you got tired of the music on a particular tape, you could just record over it with different music, creating a brand new mixtape. The mixtapes came in various capacities that ranged from 30 to 60 minutes per side, and they were so durable that if you found one today, it probably still works. Which of these great memories remind you of your childhood? Be sure to let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.